Hello there, it's Qckslvrslash and 0.6.4 is upon us, and as are the French cruisers. Now I'm sorry this video is a little bit late, but I wound up passing out last night and woke up at, well, now, so 3 a.m. So, gonna get the video done, uploaded right away so that it's not too much later than usual. The one benefit to having passed out is I woke up to a replay from Kelorn of the Charles Martel, the Tier 8 French cruiser. And this will give us a chance to look at what is waiting for us as we grind up the line. And Tier 8 is really kind of the start of where I'd say competitive ships really should exist. It's where ranked often has been, and it's where a number of the different competitive formats have been, and we'll see where Clan Wars ends up as it comes out and becomes a thing, but it wouldn't surprise me if it's 8 or 10, because both offer kind of unique options. But enough about that kind of postulation. Let's talk about the ships, and I have enjoyed them. I'm up to the Tier 5, and they've been fun, and for me the Tier 5 is like Königsberg Part 2 sort of. The turrets are just in the front rather than the back, and they are very beautiful ships. I like how they look. There's something very classic to their overall design and layout. And then it's got the slanted back main stack there that almost reminds me of the Iroquois class destroyers that my Navy just retired. They used to have the bunny ears and they amalgamated, but it's kind of got just a unique look to it. But obviously one of the main things that makes these ships unique is that speed boost. And you don't get this to start, it is a later tier thing, like pretty much all the things that make different nations unique. And a lot of people go, oh, speed boost on a cruiser doesn't make a lot of sense. Well, it does when you look at the type of cruiser. The French cruisers are very good at kiting. They're better at a distance, but they can still do work in close like any cruiser with some smart ammunition choices and just being aware of how much of your broadside you're showing. But if you are spending a lot of the game kiting, one of the problems that can quite regularly occur is you kind of kill the one or two ships that are closest to you. And you were keeping them in arm's reach, so 14,000 kilometers as the enemy Khabarovsk detonates. So you're keeping them out at range. Now, when you kill those two ships, the next closest thing on the enemy team could be, 20 plus kilometers away, well outside of engagement range. So now you've got to close. And I think that's where the speed boost comes in. It lets you get back into engagement range quick after taking care of the things you've been kiting. And you can see with the speed boost going, this cruiser is doing just over 40 knots, which is very impressive. And he's managed to get to A in quite a hurry, despite not having spawned the closest to it. I think the other thing that speed boost can offer is at the start of the game, you may be able to surprise some destroyers by being in places that they really don't think you can be. Now, of course, that is going to wear off because tactics like that only work for maybe a week until people have faced the ship a couple times and then go, oh, there might be a French cruiser around this corner. So don't count on that one too much. And obviously, as I've talked about before, speed can get cruisers into trouble in a hurry. Now, fortunately for Kelorn, the entirety of the enemy team seems to just have decided Charlie is where they're going. And most of his team seem to decide the same thing. And that can work out really well if the enemy team doesn't push. However, if someone does get brave and leads the charge in and they all group up around them and sail in as a group, you could see trouble brewing pretty quickly because just a numbers game, they don't have as many up there as the enemy team. So with 30 seconds left on this speed boost, kelorn's got to get his butt in gear and continue to close these enemies and hopefully get back into gun range of something so he can start putting these French guns to work. Now, as far as the guns, there's not a lot special to say. You know, it's not like the British cruisers that we got last where they only have AP. These are what you expect. Pretty standard guns, HE, AP. Now, I know some people have kind of said, well, the AP doesn't have as good a pen, but I don't know. In a lot of practical situations, the penetration difference I don't think is too bad. Now, obviously, this is things I have to kind of try myself. So before I dig too far into that, I'm going to stop myself from really just guessing because I haven't played the ships enough. Once I get to the tier 8, I'll have a better feeling, but at least with the tier 5, I've been finding it quite reliable. And it just comes down to using the right ammunition at the right time. So obviously the enemy Fletcher there managed to get into B and he's gonna probably slip away here. Assuming he's smart enough to hold his fire, and it looks like he is, so maybe one more volley and we'll see him fade out of existence. And you can kind of see what I was talking about earlier and what I was worried about earlier. The enemy team did get brave. They've all pushed in. One of kelorn's teammates was left alone a little further forward. Everyone else kind of abandoned him and he got wiped out. And now that team is just going to take C and come charging down because they've got momentum. Now obviously a couple of their ships, as you can see there, that Amagi and Qckslvrslash, look to be pretty beat up, so focusing them down is going to be a priority for kelorn's team. But right now all kelorn really has shots at is this Alabama. And 8,200 damage he just took right through the bow is definitely not comfortable. Hopefully his buddy Phoenix in the Qckslvrslash can start doing some damage to Captain Teddy Bear here. And would you look at that? He's no longer aiming at kelorn. I think that Alabama has decided that the Tirpitz is the more dangerous foe, which I don't get. That Bama probably could have done a lot of damage to kelorn here. But he fired at the Tirpitz, and Phoenix is doing what a good division mate will always do for you. You know, kelorn was a little too close in, got to about 10, inside of 10k. So Phoenix charged in, he's got armor, he's in a Tirpitz, and he really drew the attention away from kelorn, which is let kelorn pull back, get back into those safe kind of ranges where maneuver and speed will act in place of armor. Unfortunately, he never did manage to light a second fire on that Alabama, which is a little unfortunate because you can see the Alabama's just stuck behind the corner. He could be racking up free damage right now. And then the other unfortunate thing is, well, Phoenix just got dropped on hard. And while I think of it, one of the interesting things, the Tirpitz's secondaries, if I read the patch notes or remember the patch notes correctly, are now identical to the Bismarcks. So for those of you who see a Tirpitz, its only trick in the books is no longer torpedoes. It can do just that cloud of doom that the Bismarck can put out. Now, obviously, things aren't going too great for kelorn's team, but fortunately, they're not too far behind right now. They're only down a kill. They got an early cap, and they're managing to contest B as he finishes that Fletcher off, which is a really good thing for the friendly Qckslvrslash. Unfortunately, the Qckslvrslash gets finished off too, so now they've got no one in B, and you gotta hope this Yugamo down here is gonna be charging up as kelorn puts some of that AP to use, doing almost 5,000 damage to that slightly angled Qckslvrslash. Just showing that, yeah, the AP works. But as I said, it's all about using the right ammunition in the right situation. Meanwhile, Captain Teddy Bear has managed to recover about 10,000 hit points and is starting to charge out. And this is going to be tricky for kelorn. Obviously, throws his torps at the edge of land because it's what you do. Hopefully the Alabama continues to turn, sails straight into them. kelorn gets a fire on the first volley, but those big guns are coming around. And kelorn's got the rudder over. He's got to get his hull a lot better angled than he's got it. Here come the shells. And they wind up behind him. And that's another advantage of the speed that these French cruisers bring. Once again, not going to last forever, but a lot in the way that kind of Russian destroyers can be nearly impossible to hit at range, just because of how much speed they have, because of the amount of speed they've got. When they're at a further range, slight changes in rudder really drastically displace the ship. You know, a ship doing 40 knots, if it comes, 6 degrees off its course, it's going to do a fraction of its forward speed, approximately a tenth, displacing itself laterally from its track. And how quickly you displace yourself is a function of how quickly you're going forward as well. And it's all just a bunch of beautiful trigonometry. Now, unfortunately, none of those torpedoes did hit, but the Alabama is going to be a goner here anyways. He's got some torp bombers dropping on his buddy down there, and that's a little unfortunate. Phoenix may be done for, but the Alabama is done for as well, and winds up being the Midway who gets the kill. So kelorn's now 60,000 damage in. He's got 1 kill, and the pressure is kind of on. You can see the enemy team still has 2 battleships. They no longer have any. Their advantage really comes in the form of those destroyers, but they just got killed too. As did the Moskva. So it's time to put his big boy pants on and try to carry this game. Now, fortunately, he does have a carrier left. And Midways really are built for the long game. They've got very deep hangars. So that Midway probably going to be able to keep himself alive. Hopefully can wipe out some of this enemy competition. And you can see right now both carriers dead on, 2 kills apiece. But my first target, if I were the Midway, would be this Kurfürst, because that thing can absolutely wreck. And he's alone. That's the other thing. The Minotaur, as you can see, is sailing away from the Kurfürst. He doesn't really have air cover. Now, there is the Amagi down there too, so he's getting dropped on by the Midway. And kelorn's starting to work this Kurfürst over. The Ibuki managed to finish off the Kutuzov. So things are closing down a little. And really the big helper in this match is they've got both caps for now. Now, they're not ahead on cap points, but with the amount of time left, they will be if the enemy team doesn't do anything. And what that is going to do is force this Minotaur and Baltimore into Bravo. They've got to get in the cap and contest it, and oh no, this turn may have been poorly timed for kelorn. Gets a little lucky there. I didn't watch exactly how the shells fell, but he was sitting pretty flat on to the GK there, but only took 1,200 damage. So you can see he's swapped to AP and ready to start working over this Minotaur, who manages to slip between those Ibuki torpedoes. And another obviously kind of important thing here is going to be hitting both ships. And unfortunately, doesn't look like anyone's shooting at the Baltimore. You'd really hope that maybe the Ibuki, before he died there, could have hit the Baltimore, but look at kelorn absolutely rip this Minotaur apart. And granted, the Minotaur doesn't have very good armor, but it is still a tier 10 cruiser with an amazing rate of fire and really does have the potential to just wreck. And kelorn is just pumping citadels into him, continuing to fire in the smoke, carefully tracking where he was last aiming. Another citadel. Really just showing that Minotaur exactly why you don't sit side on in a smoke. You may be invisible, but you're not impervious. And that should be it. Another citadel picks up the kill. The New Orleans is spotted. Probably the next target I'd be going for. Simply because he's pretty much side on as well. Unfortunately, the New Orleans, you can see, is starting to bow in. And I'm not sure what that enemy Kurfürst is doing because he still hasn't been spotted, but I think he's going to be out of the battle for a while, and that's going to give kelorn a really good opportunity here to try to pick things up. The Amagi is nearly dead, so if he can finish this New Orleans off, the shell's bouncing on that volley. And he decides to go for the Amagi, which I kind of like. The New Orleans doesn't have torpedoes. He's pretty much bow in. Not much the New Orleans can do there. And now that he's got a better angle, he decides to go to work. And he did switch over to AP. Nothing wrong with that. Or sorry, HE, not AP. And finishes the New Orleans off. He did get a fire on the Amagi, but the Amagi quickly put it out. So hopefully this next volley will be another. Come on, RNG. Nice. Gets the kill and is taking the cap. So that's 4 kills, almost 115,000. I said almost 120, but it's not there. Unfortunately, you can see the Midway has gotten chased out by that Baltimore. Well, the Midway was chased out by the enemy carrier, but the Baltimore is now in striking range. And you can see the GK has turned himself around, and this is not a great position for kelorn to be in. Because while you'd like to come charging out at this Baltimore, really put the pressure on, try to protect the CV, he's got to get this cap. Because if he doesn't, they're going to lose. Granted, if he can't protect his CV, they're probably going to lose that way too. And really, just not a great situation to be in. The Balti is side on though, gets a Citadel, 13,000 damage, almost having the amount of health that Cruiser has left. And you can see him coming around, gets a set of torpedoes off, and hopefully he can finish this Baltimore off, because now it really is time to carry. It's just him left, and a Baltimore, Kurfürst, and Midway. That's a tall order to ask of a tier 8 cruiser. But he has carried himself excellently so far, and that's where it ends. Definitely a bit of heartbreak there, but kelorn still had an amazing game. 433,000 credits, 6,600 experience, nearly 135,000 damage, 4 kills on a loss. And, you know, maybe a bit of RNG, a bit better coordination with the Midway, that could have ended differently. Unfortunately, it was a loss, and he couldn't really do much. He had to stay in the cap there. He couldn't let the enemy team get ahead on points because it would force his hand. And the GK, Baltimore, and Midway all just kind of conspired against him to ruin any chance he had at carrying that one. But either way you look at it, it was a great game, and the experience shows that 1,772 base XP on a loss. And you can see there's only like 4 people on the other team who beat him. And he was on the losing team, doesn't get that XP bonus for being on the winning team. So you can only imagine how good a game that would have been, or could have been experience-wise, had his team held on a little longer. And you kind of saw it developing at the start. There's one of 2 ways it was going to go. Either the enemy team was going to push, and it could go pretty poorly, and it did, or they could have all sat at Charlie and done nothing, in which case this one probably would have been over a lot quicker. But when you look into the damage, you can see this is a pretty impressive ship. Now, he does get more out of the HE than the AP in this battle, but he used the HE more, gets the fires in there too, you know, kind of ultimately adding up to about double his AP damage, but he did put the AP to some excellent use when it was applicable. And I think that's the big thing that people need to know going into these ships. Use the right frickin' ammo. But you've got battleships at tier 10 who sail around spamming HE, so I guess for some that's a little more difficult than it sounds. Now, as far as credits and experience, he got himself almost 300,000 credits, 6,600 XP, a little more for his captain, who is still under training. Anyways, I would like to thank you, kelorn, for sending this in. It was nice to see what I'm working towards. I'll probably make it to the tier 8 today myself. If you guys enjoyed this, please consider giving it a thumbs up or subscribing to the channel. Both really help me out. And as always, I'm Qckslvrslash, and I'll have another one for you guys later.